After more than a decade and a half at the helm of the Canadian Union of Public Employees and 6 years as the president of the Ontario Federation of Labour, few people have had the vantage point on labour issues in this province that Sid Ryan has had. Bruising battles with governments, major mobilizations for workers' rights, and dealing with difficult divisions within the union movement. He's now put pen to paper and recounts those experiences in his new memoir. It's called A Grander Vision, My Life in the Labour Movement. And Sid Ryan joins us now for more. Cyril, it's nice to have you here.
Oh, God, yes.
Okay, let's tell a bit of your story here. You grew up in Dublin, Ireland in the 1950s, and it's 10 kids, and you're crammed into a tiny house. On regular occasions, your family couldn't afford to pay the heating bill, that kind of thing. Did you know, Sid, at the time that you were poor?
No, not at all, because I believed we had a brilliant childhood. I had a really, really fantastic childhood, fabulous. Lots of friends, of course, my brothers and sisters. We had to invent our own games, as we did, lots of it. But no, we never knew that we were actually living in poverty, because most people around us were living in the same conditions.
But as you look back, you were.
And I look back and I remember, like, my mother, having to, when we'd lose the gas, because coal gas is what fueled the stove and so on. When we weren't able to afford that, we'd have to put the pots and pans onto the fire, onto the coal embers, to boil the water. And then as kids, we thought this was fantastic, it was so different. Then afterwards, we got to clean the pots and the pans with steel wool. So all around, we took this as like a little adventure.
You tell, I mean, you joke about this in the book. It's actually not funny, but you joke about it in the book. You're born at home, and during the process, the umbilical cord is wrapped around your neck, and you nearly die in childbirth.
That's right.
Now, I want to name names, Sid Ryan. Who today in the labour movement wishes that umbilical cord was a little tighter so you didn't make it?
Oh, I'd say Jerry Dias. I'd say Hassan Yusuf. I would say Smokey Thomas. Oh, I could name a lot.
I bet you could. All right, we may come to some of those names later. You worked in the trades throughout your young adult life, and I want to read an excerpt from your book about an experience that you had in 1971. And if this isn't Sid Ryan to a T, I don't know what is. Here we go. Sheldon, bring this up, please. Massey, who's the foreman, reached into his inside pocket, took out his pipe, and fetched around inside his side pockets for matches. When he realized he didn't have any, he scanned the trailer that served as our lunchroom and stopped when he came to me. "Hey," he said, "run down to the shops and buy me a box of matches." I was furious. This was not a work-related chore. He wanted to use me as his personal errand boy. I said, "Look, I'm here to learn a trade, not be your personal slave." "You have two choices," he said. "Go buy me matches or go back to head office." I knew going back to the office meant I would be fired. I said, "F you," except you didn't say F, "go buy your own matches." Sure enough, I was fired that afternoon. I found this story so interesting because I want to know where an 18-year-old kid gets off having stones that big to say this to his boss.
I would probably say from my father, who, as a 12-year-old, he led a strike, and in a little two-bedroom house was like the strike headquarters. So I was listening to, these folks back and forward arguing for workers' rights and so on. And so I knew going in as an apprentice that I had certain rights. And of course, I knew one of them wasn't to be an errand boy for anybody. And so I told this guy where to get off.
Oh, you did more than that, I think, if I recall. 4 years later, you come to Canada, you stand your ground again when there is a manager who is urging you to do some work at the Pickering nuclear plant where you worked that you considered to be unsafe work. Tell us the story.
Well, we passed the Occupational Health and Safety Act in 1978, which gives workers the right to refuse unsafe work if they believe that the work will endanger them or their fellow workers. I was asked to go into what they call a vacuum duct. The vacuum duct connects the reactor buildings in the CANDO system into a massive vacuum chamber. So if you have to go in there occasionally there's like tin foil that separates the chambers, the two chambers. Occasionally to get little holes in those tin foil in the size of the chambers. So I had to go in, but going in, I recognized that if the reactor, something happened to the reactors, these massive valves would open and you would be sucked in through these valves into the into the vacuum building at about 1,500 miles an hour. So I said, wait a second.
You're dead, basically.
Oh, yeah, you're dead. And I said, well, what kind of precautions are we taking? Do the operators understand that there's somebody in the vacuum building and not to, impact upon the power levels? How will I know if there's going to be an accident? Will, the differential in pressure, when it starts rising? How will I know? They basically told me I won't. And the people have been doing this for 20 years. I said, well, I'm not doing it, and I basically refused. So it led to a massive standoff. The Ministry of Labour came in. The union themselves, when I phoned up, they said, oh boy, we don't even know. We've never tested this piece of legislation before. Plant manager called me into his office with all engineers, tried to convince me to go into the vacuum building and get rid of the work refusal. Of course, I refused and said no, stood my ground. And eventually the ruling came down that I was right. I didn't have to go in because, one, I didn't have the training. Two, that the hydro hadn't, put all the safety precautions in place. So it cost them about $13 million to make it acceptable for workers to have to go into that vacuum duct.
Was it a fight worth having?
Yes, it was, because what happened was lots of people then around the plant began to use the same Occupational Health and Safety Act. They weren't aware of it. When they were exposed to asbestos, for example, or high levels of radiation in certain circumstances, they said, oh, no, we're not doing that. And then, of course, it spread across the province too. People began to see that this piece of legislation actually works.
What got you, I mean, that was clearly an example of you taking a position of leadership as it related to a labor relations issue. What eventually got you into official labordom?
Well, basically, official, I mean, right at the very beginning was when I came to Canada as a 22-year-old. But as an activist, in the plant itself, the management recognised that chief stewards were essentially actually able to help them resolve some problems, because before it got to human resources, sometimes we were able to resolve the issue by looking at the collective agreement. So in essence, I became a full-time staff or QP rep inside the plant itself. But really and truly, what really got happened is I went to my first convention, was in Vancouver, and I got to see these speakers who could change a convention. 2,000 people on the floor of a convention. A speaker gets up and completely changes the dynamic on the floor of a convention. Somebody else gets up on the con mic and they can move it back again. And I was fascinated by the ability of public speakers to be able to move 2,000 people. And I said, I got to learn how to do that.
Which you did. And in your day, of course, you have led dozens and dozens of protests involving sometimes tens of thousands of people in the streets. What I want to know is, can you point to a single incident where you think mobilizing workers in the street actually changed government policy towards a way you would have preferred?
Well, one, Mike Harris brought in Bill 136. He was amalgamating cities. And in the course of amalgamating cities, he was essentially saying, you don't have the right to free collective bargaining. No, you don't have the right to go on strike during this phase. Because we knew if that was the case, our collective agreements would be basically stripped by employers, because we wouldn't have the right to strike, we wouldn't have the right to bargain. So I mobilised CUPE, took strike votes all across the province, and the strategy behind it was we knew that MPPs in their own communities would be reading the local newspapers. So we went into Kingston and took a strike vote of all the CUPE members, 95% strike mandate. Up in North Bay, it was interesting, I was sitting on the plane coming back from North Bay? No, it was Thunder Bay, and the local MPP was sitting in front of me with the newspaper, the morning paper, and it says on the front headline, CUPE 85% strike mandate. So I said, fantastic, he's going to go back in, tell Mike Harris, and they're all going to tell, all these MPPs will begin saying, Ryan is out there mobilising folks, 85% strike mandates in all of our communities. Harris eventually called us in and said, look, I'm prepared to withdraw the piece of legislation if you guys will agree not to frivolously go on strike during these amalgamations. So we killed Bill 136. Globe and Mail the next day, banner headline says, Harris blinks. Probably one of the first times that Harris ever backed down from any demonstration.
Okay, having said that, you give me that one as a victory. I can probably give you 25 for every occasion you were in the streets making a ruckus and nothing happened. Would you grant that?
I will say this much. When we had our demonstrations, Days of Action, for example, we didn't defeat Harris with our Days of Action because he got himself re-elected. But we did it in the course of, shutting down 12 cities, educating hundreds of thousands of our members across the province. We did, in fact, back Harris off the worst elements of his agenda. He knew that he was dropping in the polls as a result of our protests. So I think we lessened the damage that could have happened had we not been out there protesting in the streets. Did we have some protests where governments didn't listen? Of course. I mean, we live in a democracy and we know that, demonstrations, we're not going to overthrow a government. That's never the intent. The intent is to try to influence them enough that they'll see that, they're dropping in the polls, or that there's so much unrest that they really have to rethink the policy that they're implementing.
I wonder whether all these years later, and we're almost 30 years removed now from the election of Bob Rae's government, I wonder if you have any second thoughts about the hell you put him through. And in fact, you called him in the book a traitor to the cause.
Yeah, I think he was because of what he did. But do I have regrets? I had regrets right at the time we were going through this battle with Bob Rae. I mean, I did not dislike Bob Rae. I wanted Bob Rae to find a solution with us. We were proposing real solutions, but Bob Rae, we were being told behind the scenes, he needed a political solution because he had Mike Harris with his common sense revolution, which he was about to unleash. And we had Lynn MacLeod, who was basically hammering away that there ought to be some extraction of benefits from the public sector collective agreements. So he didn't want the practical solution that we offered. In fact, we would have given him more than what he was asking for.
In terms of savings.
In terms of savings, but he was looking for the political solution. And that is what I never forgave him for, because he put us in this position where he basically summoned us to a public meeting with our employers who were only too happy to open our collective agreements. And I thought, geez, would the Conservatives call the bankers and call the Bay Street corporate sector to a public meeting with unions and say to the corporate sector, we're going to raise taxes because we need to get some more extra money out of you folks, and we have the unions in here basically going to help us to put pressure on you. Like, it wouldn't happen, but but the socialist government did it, and that's what I never forgave him for.
15 years ago, you've been coming to the studio for a long time, incidentally.
Sure have.
15 years ago, you were on a show we used to do here called Studio 2.
Yes.
Want to see a clip?
Go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Sheldon, if you would, please. If Dalton McGuinty's government decides it wants to go ahead and pursue these savings in the way it has been described in this report, what would you do?
Well, Dalton has got very little political capital left right now, and I don't know if he's in a position to be able to expend any more by taking on a battle with Labour. Put it this way, when Bob Rae opened up our collective agreements, and you all know I'm a strong NDPer, we went to war with Bob Rae, and basically...
You helped defeat him?
We helped to defeat him.
So you helped to defeat Bob Rae. You may have helped to defeat Mike Harris's government eventually. He didn't lose an election, but the Conservatives in 2003 eventually lost to Dalton McGuinty. You didn't like the McGuinty government either. You guys went to war with them. Is there any government that's ever satisfactory enough for the Labour movement in this province, in your view?
I think inherently we're always at war with governments. I mean, because governments typically are passing laws that impact upon workers. And if the law is unfair to workers, then obviously we're going to fight them, even if it is like a socialist government like Bob Rae.
Well, that's the thing. Do you sometimes cut off your nose to spite your face?
I don't think so, because in the case of Bob Rae, we had a choice. We could have saved the Rae government and accepted his cuts, basically, but we would have lost the Labour movement. And the Labour movement has been around for 150 years. And we figured that governments come and go. At the end of the day, you've got to stand by your principles.
But you lost.
So,
you defeated Rae, and you ended up getting Harris.
But there was a principle involved. You can't just say, I'm going to put my principles aside because it's a friendly government. When that government basically comes in and opens up a collective agreement, which are absolutely sacrosanct, there is no way that a bank would ever open up a mortgage or any signed contract. Why would we allow our friends to open up our contracts, which are duly signed? Through blood, sweat and tears, and we gave up concessions in any event to get that collective agreement. And then the government to come in and say, well, okay, we're looking for some benefit from you now. Now we want you to open up your collective agreement.
Okay, you stood up for a principle. I get that. But what you got in response to standing up for that principle may have been worse than what the medicine was Bob Rae was trying to get you to swallow.
That's possible, but we don't know that. I mean, we don't know at the end of the day,
Well, we do know. Tens of thousands of public servants lost their jobs when Mike Harris was elected, and Bob Rae was trying to save those jobs with the social contract.
Was it because of the social contract, or was it because he walked away from public auto insurance, which I believe was a bigger problem, or because he brought in Sunday shopping, which was a big problem with a segment of the community as well? I mean, there were lots of policies that he brought in that people didn't like, other than us fighting with him over the social contract. So I cannot say for definite that it was only the social contract that brought down Bob Rae. I mean, that was probably on top of all of the other issues. It had a compounding impact, but I wouldn't argue that the social contract brought him down.
Okay. One of the things I really found fascinating about the book, you do peel back the curtain, and you do go into some detail about the internecine battles that take place inside the Labour movement.
Yes.
I thought it was supposed to be one for all and all for one in the Labour movement, but there is so much infighting and backstabbing, and you don't spare many details on all of that. Why does that happen if you're all supposed to work together and the employer is actually the enemy?
It's basically unions operate in their own silos. Union leaders, a lot of them, tend to be the king or the queen of their own castle, and they don't really want to engage with other unions. The central organisations, such as district labour councils, federations of labour and the Canadian Labour Congress, are the central bodies basically where unions are meant to come together, become unified. There's nothing but trouble in those organisations where unions dislike the policies of a leader, in my particular case, or of the organisation, and they withdraw their funding, which basically weakens the central organisations.
That happened to you.
Happened to me.
When you were running the
not
OFL.
Exactly, and happened to others as well. Like, you know, you've got Unifor right now. I had a disagreement over raiding other unions, and they're going to be sanctioned by the CLC, so they leave and pull out millions of dollars of this from the central organisation, from the CLC, thereby weakening the rest of the labour movement. Now, when you try to put together a campaign, you've got Unifor is outside of the Federation of Labour, it's outside of the CLC, and it's outside of labour councils, and consequently, workers feel odd about trying to work with that union because they've been kicked out of the central labour body. So all these internal fights, some of us stemming back 30, 40, 50 years. The CAW, the old CAW fighting with steel workers over the philosophical direction. You know, one wants to build what they call social unionism, which is essentially working with the community. Others just want to work with political parties or just be what they call business trade unionists, just deal with collective bargaining, grievances.
You prefer the former.
And I preferred social unionism. Get onto the streets, work with community, build the base of the labour movement. We should be an integral part of our communities, not a separate, stand aside from them.
I don't have to tell you, that gets you in trouble from time to time. Like, for example, when you were at CUPE and the convention that you were at passed a resolution excoriating Israel and intending to put sanctions on Israel, divestment sanctions, you know, the whole BDS movement.
Yes.
Now, help us understand why there is value in an Ontario public sector workers union taking that kind of shot at the only democracy in the Middle East.
It's about social justice, basically.
How much social justice is there in any of the neighboring countries in the Middle East?
But it isn't about the social justice in neighbouring countries. We're dealing with Palestinians who've been basically deprived of their basic human rights, and done so by one of the most powerful countries in the world. And I come to this, of course, coming from Ireland, where we know a lot about occupation and suppression from hundreds of years of it, and even recently, you know, and continuing in Northern Ireland, which is still part of the UK, and there's a big movement to sort of unite the two. So I come to the Israeli issue and the Palestinian question from a social justice perspective. And I don't see why, as a union leader, when I have a platform, that I should not be speaking out about the injustices. By the way, if you read through the book, I also talk about the injustices inside of Iran, how the Iranian government are actually beating up on trade unionists and the oppression that's taking place in that particular country, and many other countries I mention in the book as well, where CUPE is active. So
But
it isn't only just singling out Israel.
No, fair enough. But you took particular flack at the time for the Israeli BDS thing.
Oh, absolutely. We were the largest organisation in the world at the time that had actually supported the BDS movement. That was 2006. BDS was just basically getting off the ground. So you can well imagine, organisations like B'nai B'rith and at the time the Canadian Jewish Congress, they were absolutely livid, and they came after me big time. I got 35,000 emails, most of them from inside of Canada, but a lot of them some from outside of Canada. Some of them calling for me to be murdered, and so on. It was a pretty vicious period in my life, but one that I would not budge an inch from, because I solidly believe that a BDS campaign, which is a non-violent campaign, is the way to go to put pressure on Israel to recognize the rights of Palestinians.
Let's, time flies here. Let's finish up on this. The labor movement, of course, helped create the present NDP. We're going back, well, it's 1961. It's almost 60 years now. For a long time, the NDP could always count on not just the union leadership to back it, but workers' votes as well. Certainly not the case anymore.
No.
Why not?
Well, this is the importance of union leaders. Union leaders actually can dictate the policy and the direction of their union. And there was a time when practically every union leader in the country was solidly behind the NDP. And then a bunch of leaders get elected, probably beginning with Buzz Hargrove back in the late 1990s, who got upset with the NDP. They kicked him out of the party for draping a union jacket around the shoulders of
Paul Martin.
Paul Martin.
I remember it well.
And he did it basically because they began to curry favour with the Liberals because they wanted the Liberals to put investment into the auto plants. So it was like a single issue type of a movement, which upset a lot of people in the Labour movement. He gets kicked out of the NDP. And he goes and he conducts a survey within his membership to see basically should we be affiliated to any party or should we play both sides of the fence, Liberals and NDP. And of course that became the issue. And that spread, that whole notion then of strategic voting spread to other union leaders who adopted it, who basically, some unions sit on the fence. They don't want necessarily to get involved and say to their members, we think you should support the NDP. So there are far too many union leaders like that, leaving now a minority of union leaders exclusively supporting the NDP. I'd say the majority are sitting on the fence with strategic voting. And it draws in the middle of an election, it splits the vote between the Liberals and the NDP, and in most cases, we end up electing Conservatives.
Well, I got to tell you, I enjoyed the book very much. You've had quite a consequential life, and we got through the whole interview without you telling me to go F myself, so it's really quite amazing. Sid Ryan, A Grander Vision, My Life in the Labour Movement. Cyril Ryan, good to have you at TVO once again.
It's Patrick Cyril Ryan, by the way.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
Thank
Patrick
you.
Cyril Ryan, there we go. Thanks so much, Sid.
Thank you, pleasure.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.